Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby. And can you believe it's March already? I know I do this every year, but I am so excited to be through the winter. I am hopeful. I can't wait to see daffodils popping up. I mean, last year, to be honest, I think they popped through like in February. That's not going to happen now. Obviously, we're through February and I don't see any sight of them, but hopefully in March, I am definitely hopeful. But March is also Women's History Month. I say, of course, it should be every damn day, and we should live like it's every damn day, advocating for one another, women, and of course, we'll get into that today with my guest. But as you know, if you've listened before, I like to say at the top of the conversation how I know my guest, how I came to know them, because I'm a big fan of or believer in getting out there in the community, connecting, being curious, trying new things, being open to meeting new people. When you do meet them, remember them, keep their business card. You never know how you can show up for one another, and it can be obviously mutually beneficial. And even if you just learn something from someone, it's not about always getting something, like, oh, they'll get me a job or whatever. Just learn some new insight, information. I think that's great. So, my guest today is someone I ran into. I joke that we were in the green room, like we're really, we were important people that day, but we were. My guest today spoke last year she was at the Empower conference that the Greater Scranton Chamber puts on. I was a wellness presenter the past 2 years, and I'm doing that again this year. I'm excited about that. So if you're in the area, it's the end of April, I believe the 29th. It's at Kalahari. Great speakers, wellness presentations, vendors, all about empowering women. And we were back there in this kind of area where people who were speaking could chill, grab a water. And I had on one of my favorite t-shirts, which is part of a fundraiser that Luzerne County's Dress for Success does. I believe it was my favorite one, Women in Power, or it was Women of Action or something. One of those are my favorites. And she pointed to it, said something, and we talked briefly. And then I was having coffee with someone at Abide Coffee Shop. Shout out to Abide in Wilkes-Barre. It's a great place, great vibe. She was there. She spoke to my friend Jessica I was talking to, who she knew. We connected. And like, this is the great thing about getting out in the community. You never know who you're going to run into. And you're like, hey, I'm like, I want to have you on my podcast because she's a lot of fun and she's about supporting women. So without further ado, my guest this week is Michelle Pack. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi, Janine. Thank you so much for having me on, especially during Women's History Month, best month, and my birthday month. There's
Oh,
no coincidence to that, I promise.
now do you celebrate? Now, first of all, do you celebrate and do you celebrate all month? That's what I do.
Yes, it's birthday month,
Okay.
and I celebrate big time. Yes, I believe that every birthday is a win. I'm not ashamed to tell you how old I am. I think that, the alternative to having birthdays is not having birthdays, which is not anything that, we want to celebrate. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm all about it.
I love that. You know what? I love that you're like that. I am that same way too. And I will tell people like I'm 54, my birthday's in September. I do celebrate all month. I literally do. But so when I see stuff on like I'll hear stuff, but I'll see even like posts on Facebook where people are like birthdays are for kids and like they're annoyed with people who celebrate. And I'm like sitting there like rolling my eyes, like, okay, whatever, simmer down.
No, I literally just had that conversation before we got on with my mother. She's 91 she'll be 91 in May. And I said, do you want to do anything? We did a big party for her 90th. And I said, do you want to do anything for 91? And she's like, no, it's not a big one. And I said, well, Mom, I beg to differ. I think anything after 90 is you can celebrate every month if you want to.
Yeah, seriously, you're a living, right? We're
You're
living. We
living.
should celebrate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, tell me before because I'm really it was funny. The day I ran into you at Abide, you said something about feminism, and I'm like, oh yeah, I like this. I like this woman. And I want to talk to you about that because I feel like that's not a conversation I mean, we talk about supporting women, and I am all
Yeah.
for it, but I have never really had a conversation with someone on here before about what is your idea of feminism, what my idea is. But before we get into that, and I want you to be able to talk about anything coming up with the different organizations you're involved in. I want listeners and myself to learn more about you. I know you're in the financial field and you want to empower women, but tell me a little bit more about yourself. Maybe, are you from the area? What led you to doing what you do now?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm actually not from the area, which is kind of almost taboo for NEPA, right? Um,
Oh,
I
you're one
was
of those. No, I'm
I'm
just
one of
kidding.
I'm one of those. Yes, I actually chose to be here.
I actually like that, by the way. Side
Yes.
note, I ran into a city council person here in Scranton. She went to the University of Scranton and stayed because she liked it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
we should be embracing that. It's like you chose it. And
Yes.
I love that. So yes, go ahead.
Yes, yeah. So that's the yeah. So I'm not. So we can get back to that too because that's something I'm really passionate about as well is about promoting the area. But no, I my parents are from this area, but my dad got a job and transferred all over the country. So I was born in the Midwest, but raised mostly in Northern California in a beautiful little coastal town. Um, and then I did my own moving around. I went to school in Las Vegas. I lived in Maui for a while. I've lived, brief stints in Mexico, things like that. So did a lot of fun moving around when I was younger. And then my mother called me about 6 years ago now, 7 years ago now, and said, "Hey, honey, I'm 85 years old. I probably shouldn't be living alone anymore. And, what do you think?" And I said, "Oh, you want to move to back with, you want to move to California?" She goes, "No." So I ended up in northeastern Pennsylvania, which was really a blessing. I mean, California is a beautiful place to live, but there's just some benefits to everywhere. And I think that making a change at that point in my life was allowed me to grow in ways and a lot that wouldn't have been able to grow if I had stayed comfortable in my own place for so long. So that got me into. I was working for a company called Tesla, which many people know.
Mm.
I was their VP of internal sales for their energy division, so
Wow.
solar panels. But there wasn't a big market for that out here. So I took my skills and I thought, well, what else am I good at? What else would allow me to really be involved in the community and to have the flexibility to be with my mom when I needed to or to do what I needed to do. So I got into finance for a lot of various reasons, but that's what got me into finance. And I've been loving it ever since and loving living here.
Wow. So that's not the norm, honestly, with my guests about like living in so many different places. That's, Maui, you mentioned Mexico.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, to me, I've never lived anywhere. I mean, it's not like I've never left like a country bumpkin, but I mean, but I've never lived anywhere else. So that's something I often do. Like sometimes I go, "Well, maybe I should have." I find that interesting. I'm a little envious because it's like you get a taste of not just visiting, but really what life is like there in a different place. And I would imagine life in Northern California is a lot different than Northeastern Pennsylvania, dare say, right?
Yes and no. So
Uh-huh.
one of the things that I loved about growing up in the town that I did was a little town called Half Moon Bay, California. And when I grew up there, it was like Napa. It was small. Like you knew people had been there for generations. No one ever left. It was a farming town. It was fishermen, farmers. Not a lot is bedroom community. Not a lot of industry and things like that there. And then when the tech bubble came, it got discovered kind of when Silicon Valley blew up because it's just right across the highway over the hill, as we call it, from Silicon Valley. So it blew up and it became a completely different place. But when I grew up there, it was very community oriented, which is something I, developed. You really cared about each other. You cared about your neighbors. You cared about the beauty in the area. There was so much beauty, so you're outside a lot. So those things were really similar. I found that to be, it's very different now, but at
Mm.
the time, so I feel in some senses it's almost like a homecoming when I came to NEPA, and I was like, oh, this is another area where I could really make a difference in the community, where I could really, get involved and the people here actually care about each other. And even though I'm the outsider, the new one, I won't say the outsider, but the new one, the people that have been here, like yourself, the flip side to staying here is you've got great relationships. You've got great family trees. You've got roots everywhere. And I find that to be pretty envious sometimes as well.
Yeah. And I guess it's, like you said, something that you made me think of what I like to say all the time is that every place is home to someone because, Scranton takes a beating and it has for years. And now it's a little bit more like, oh, it's, the office. And so now people, and I'm like, I'm OG Scranton. Like I believed in it long before the office existed.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it's like I can sit here and I could tell you because I live here, it has a ton of problems. Yes, we have terrible potholes. Yes, we need, all kinds of things. but every place is home to someone. And that's why,
Yeah.
when we do bash these places, and, let's face it, I'll admit I've engaged in jokes that have made fun of, the South or West Virginia. I mean, we do it in a broad sense, but again, every place has value and benefits. I would, and especially if you really feel it, like when you're there, it means something to you. Well, then
Yeah.
that's home to you.
Well, that and I think that's important, really important. And also it's important to understand that the constant of wherever you are is you, right? So I'm a big believer in bloom where you're planted. And though, take care of your own, water yourself, nurture yourself wherever you are so that you can bloom and you can improve whatever area is around you that you've chosen to be in.
Yeah, I love that. I've never thought of it in those terms. You're the constant, because a lot of times I'll see the comments on Facebook or this area. Oh, Scranton sucks, or this sucks, that sucks, and I feel like it's the people who are always saying that. I feel like they might feel that way wherever they're planted, because I will say to people again, this place has its problems, but it's like, do you think anyone came up to me like I do comedy, I do laughter yoga? They're kind of like not exactly the norm that everybody does. No one came up and handed it to me, right? So
Right.
you go out and find the people who are doing things that you think are cool, and if they're not here, then make them happen, or then maybe you
Yeah.
do need to find greener pastures. Like that's my approach anyway.
Yeah. I mean, people, when I first moved here, people would say, oh, this is a really cliquey area, or this is, everyone has, no one's gonna be welcoming or stuff like that. Well, luckily, I live a lot of my life sometimes with blinders on, and that was one of the situations where I just was like, I just showed up. I just kept showing up and be like, "Hi, I'm here again. Hi, I'm here again. Hi, I'm here again, and I'm gonna help." And after a while, they're like, "Yeah, cool, come on in." And I never experienced that part of it, that putting you off. But I think that I hear that all the time from people who are from here, and I wrote an article like several years ago now. Of the Times Leader, and it was about one of the biggest detriments to this area, in my opinion, is the people who are from here and take it for granted. Whereas, there's so much opportunity for growth in this area and so much opportunity, and there's so many beautiful things about it that if we just shifted our mindset a little bit as a society here, we could really make this place just, I think, pop.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, location wise, look how close we are to New York City, Philadelphia, not
Philadelphia,
that far from
DC.
DC. I mean,
Yeah.
and a lot of people do say that. And a lot of people moving here, it's like, look how close you are to the highways that can take you wherever. And yeah, you're right, though. A lot of people, it was funny in 2015, friends that I had made when I visited France, we stayed in touch through postcards. I went back and stayed with them twice. They came here in 2015. And of course, you had to hear the jokes of everybody. What are you going to show them here? Oh, they
Right.
had the best time when they
Yeah.
were here. And I said, sadly, like the things I showed them are things that people probably live and die here and never like pay attention to or notice, like the architecture in downtown Scranton. Like the
Oh,
gentleman
yeah.
who did Rockefeller did Scranton Cultural Center. So it's like seeing that, like to see Marie and Jean Claude was the couple, to see Jean Claude look in the Radisson and see the mosaic tiles and the friezes, and his mouth dropped and he thought it was beautiful. Like that's someone who sees a lot in Paris, and you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they appreciate it, and you should maybe take a moment. You know what I mean? It's not like trying to
Yeah.
lecture people, but to get them to see, do you know it's literally a mile down the road from you? Like, let's
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah.
this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good life lesson for anything, right? Sometimes what is that saying? Like you can't see the forest through the trees or something like that. Like we get in our own bubble. So that's one other reason I'm always looking for growth opportunities, things that make me uncomfortable, things that put me outside of my comfort zone. And I'm sure you can understand that doing comedy is probably one of the most uncomfortable things you could possibly do. But every time you step off that stage, you've probably grown a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to be open to it, because I feel like sometimes you can stunt your own growth. You know what I mean? If you just keep doing the same old, same old. But there are nights when I feel totally different than others. Like when recently I did an event where I had wanted to partner with my friend who does romance novels. She writes, and an evening of rom and com. So it was, she read from her book. And then my other friend who's a comedian, we did comedy. So it was a really nice mix. There's a lot going on right now with my dad's health that is unfortunate. So there's been stress. It's so nice to escape. It was what I needed, because instead of focusing on the stand up, I did more improv that night. And I've been trained in it years ago, but you don't have like your monologue prepared. You just go in the moment. And there's something that night that I needed so desperately, like to relieve my stress. And it was just a lovely, like that was a growth kind of thing, but also an enjoyable thing that I don't always take the time to enjoy because I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. Okay, good. I got laughs, moving on. But I just escaped, not to be too whatever, but like it was just such a fun. I literally had fun. And I'm like, I don't remember the last time I had that much fun, you know? So
That's
yeah.
good. We need that. We need that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's up to us to like really experience the and be in the moment to enjoy it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. Key.
totally.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about you. So you,
Yeah.
before I hit record, you talked about so in your profession, which is
Yeah.
financial, that is a very key aspect of our lives, but especially as we talk about women and empowering women, that is huge.
Huge.
And I've had a lot of conversations about that on this podcast because money can be such a stressor and so much of it is tied to how you're raised. Are you in a household that worries about it all the time, so you're fearful? You know, are you anxious about how you spend? It can be a big stressor, but it
It's
also can
huge. Yeah.
be very empowering if you
Yes.
learn about how to grow it and how to
Yes.
preserve, I guess you could say.
Yes, and that's exactly why why I'm really passionate about what I do because I really believe in the educational, part of it. I think there's a saying that says like, that which we avoid controls us, and so many of us do just avoid trying to learn about those things because whatever reason, we didn't grow up with it, like you said. We didn't talk about it. Maybe there's some shame around, thinking, "Oh, I should know this by now." But why? Like that's not. I don't know how to do comedy and yoga. Like, I mean, why should you know how to do what I do, right? So I try. That's the first step I try to take with women is to try to just educate them on. There's no shame around this. There's no reason that you should know this. But it is important to know. And the stigma around women and money oftentimes, like we're not brought up to talk about it, right? We don't have that locker room talk where we sit around and talk about what a bonus was or how much money we're making. We're taught that that's not really polite necessarily. So that's not something that maybe that we're familiar with. So that on top of that, and then in our earning years, a lot of times we're hit with like the pink tax, right? Where we're having to get the baby shower gifts, the makeup, the hair care, all the kind of stuff. And so now we're spending more money and now we're putting ourselves in a situation where we think we're not good with money because we're expected to have all these expectations around it. So there's just so much around it that could be shame. So my take on it is to first just have a conversation, usually over coffee or something like that, and just have a conversation like, where are you? What are you feeling? And let's educate you on, whether it be the basics or something more advanced right now, or let's take it at your pace. Because, like you said, with that knowledge can come some serious self-confidence. Um, and from that can come some serious power, right? And not power to control others, but power so you can't be controlled. I think that's why women want power.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a big take. And my mother I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. I'm the youngest of six girls, believe it or not.
Oh wow.
All right. But mom didn't, she wasn't the one in control of finances. She didn't have that ability. And back then she didn't have the ability to get her own mortgage. She didn't have the ability to have her own credit card. So she didn't really have that ability to understand what was going on with investments or anything like that. And that definitely caused her to feel more suffocated, more forced to stay in that marriage for longer than maybe she wanted to. So that's a big one. That's a big one for me with feminism, as you said mentioned before. These people don't sometimes women don't realize how far we have come just from the 1970s,
Yes.
how much we've had to fight. I could tell you stories about having to fight for my seat at the table in corporate America, how management styles had to change over the years because you had to be in the boys' club, but then there's just all these different stories. But I think there's such a natural tie to women who, if you do get a better grasp on your money, and at least understanding it, you don't have to be making a ton of it, but just kind of understand how it can work, and being open to having those conversations around it. We can maybe break down that gender gap, that wage gap a little bit more. I don't know. That's how it ties into feminism for me, and that's I know that
Hmm.
one of the things you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting, though, you say about people don't realize how recently, I mean, what was it, 1968, 70, around that time when we were actually allowed to have a credit card in our name? I know it was
1973.
1973. I knew it was around that. And that's insane to me, that to think that it's that recent. And even I know this is a little bit of a shift that's going to go dark, but just like how people don't realize in states, the different states laws, that men could actually force their wives to have sex. So rape was not
Right.
actually illegal. And one of the last states, and I forget which I knew, but now of course my perimenopause brain is dropping things, but one of the last states did not make it illegal until like really the 90s, I want to say. And that's just a few years ago. Like, so
Yeah.
to realize like women's rights, like, wow, when we still, as we see what's happening today, where it's, well, that's a whole
That's a
bunch,
whole
but
nother conversation
that's a
about what's
whole
going
nother,
on.
yeah, like we're taking steps back, but like it was not that long ago. So when people say, oh, that can't happen, it wasn't that long ago when we look in the rear view that we had to fight for what we had, and now that
No,
it
and
could.
I think that's a danger because I
Mm-hmm.
think that women don't, you know, this generation doesn't understand that. They don't understand why the things that they can go out and do and the things they can say and the ways they can act and the job they can have and things like that. They weren't just a like a under they weren't a gimme back in the day. You know, like we had to work for all these things. Your promotion, that would have been something you would have had a lot harder time getting if our generation wasn't taking the seat at the table and trying to make room for you, you know, and leaving the door open behind us. Like, and I think there's a danger in that. And that word feminism, um, I hear women saying today, like, "Oh, I'm not a feminist." You know, I wear, I wear makeup, or I do this stuff like that, and I'm like, feminism is just for me, the definition, like you asked earlier, like, for me, it's just supporting women in whatever choices that they want to make and ensuring that society is allowing for that, right? Ensuring that the policies and procedures and that we have in place as a society are able to support women in whatever they want to do, whatever choices they want to make, but to have those choices. And I'm afraid that what's going on right now is they don't understand that those weren't always choices.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it is so interesting. Like I said, I haven't had this conversation on here. What is feminism and what people think about it? Because it is wild. And through the years, like for myself personally, that has changed because I went to Penn State. I started here in Scranton and then I went down to main campus. My degree was in journalism. So I took a lot of, liberal arts kind of classes. And I remember taking a women's studies class. And, I was young, so I was open to these ideas. And it was all about like how women are portrayed in the media and in advertising. And it was like, I will never forget, this one cover was like basically a woman's ass sticking out, but then it was like going through a meat grinder, that women were like meat. And it was this conversation about how much we're used and all this stuff. So at the time I was like fighting, like I'm a feminist, but my thoughts then, I like that I have the passion and I have the passion now, but thankfully I have more space for, I guess I'll use the terms of today, leaving space for other women who choose differently. Because
Yeah,
then I was understanding, or what I thought I was learning, was that to be a feminist, you had to work, right? Oh,
right.
those women who choose to have children and stay home, like they're not feminists. And that was my thought then. I was 20 years old, whatever, in this class. And I was young. But now, as I've learned through the years, I'm like, to me, true feminism is basically kind of like what you just said, supporting, first of all, not judging, but
Yeah.
supporting other women's choices that work for them. That is true feminism.
Yes.
And to remove all of the barriers, all of the obstacles, whether they be laws, people's outdated opinions, whatever it is, removing those barriers and obstacles so that women can choose whatever it is that they want to do.
Exactly. Exactly. And fighting for the fact that, no state, no a person's rights shouldn't change by state, right? Whether you believe in something or not, right? That's not we won't get into that topic today, but just even fighting for those rights today for women to have their own, to trust women to make their own choices and to make us equals in society. We don't need to be like men, right? We just want to be, we want to be able to be 100% ourselves and not make our choices based on what society thinks we should do or what the law tells us to do. Like trust our own choices.
Yeah, and the fact that we have, mostly often male lawmakers who don't have women's body parts and don't understand how they even work. and then are legislating them. It's really insane. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it is.
insane. Yeah.
It's
Eh,
time for the women to take over.
yeah, I think so. I agree.
They've had it long. The men have had it. They've messed it up.
Uh-huh. I
It's
agree
time for us to.
totally. I agree. I agree 100%. Yeah. But on a really serious note, I was reading and it was just a blurb. I'll admit I didn't read the full article, but like how and now and I don't even fully understand the Taliban, but like how it's legal for the Taliban, the men to beat their wives. It's now legal. And literally it just says something like as long as they don't leave certain like visible bruises. And obviously, if you can go so far as to have a law that says you can beat your wife, I'm sure they can, they're not going to be like, oh no, she has a bruise, I'm going to advocate for her. But I mean,
Right.
that's the level we're at here, where it's legal to beat the women. I saw again a headline, so I will admit I didn't read the article about in Tennessee where they want to have the death penalty on the table for women who have an abortion. I'm like, this is nuts. This is beyond nuts. So it's like, our rights, it's like we've come a long way, baby. And I'm like, but wait, what's happening? It's like I feel like we're going backwards in the
We
tunnel.
are.
Yeah.
We are completely going backwards. I mean, the turnover again, whatever your beliefs are, I respect your beliefs. And, however, Roe versus Wade being overturned created a separation of distinctions between the sexes and the rights that we have. And that's not how our Constitution is written, right? And that's not, I don't think that's, I'm not going to get into religion, but I don't think that's how God or Jesus would see it either. I
Yeah.
think that it's about so yeah, the South Carolina is another one where the death penalty is on the table for, I believe, if there's any type of miscarriage or abortion, loss of fetus, like how do you prove it? And these are just things that in our day and age, like I remember growing up and thinking, oh, thank goodness that was gotten taken care of, that's off the table, that women aren't. The movie Dirty Dancing, we've all seen it probably,
Mm,
and
yep.
that scene with the back alley abortion, and thank God, I always used to think of myself when I watched that movie, thank God we're beyond that, thank God that women are cared more now, and if we're respected more now. And then you look at like the book, I don't know if you've ever read Lessons in Chemistry. It's another
Mm,
one. It's not about abortion, but it's about sexual abuse in the workplace and how she was completely not believed, right? And how there was nothing she could do because she was, well, you must have been asking for it, right? And I remember reading that book and thinking, oh, thank God we're beyond that, and we're not. We're
yeah.
back. We're
Yeah.
back, and it's so disheartening. And part of me wants to just fight, 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 and the other part of me is just like, I'm tired.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
Where are we?
agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And that there's almost like I feel a rebirth or a new generation of men thinking this way who are being groomed by these right-wing podcasters and this whole like idea of incels, which I didn't know about. I taught part time at King's College back in like 2013 to 2020. And one of my students told me about this little like documentary or whatever on HBO. I'm like, what's an incel? And, these men who just because they've been rejected by a woman that they felt owed them something are now in these groups where they hate women. And I'm like, well, this is lovely. I mean, like, it's frightening. It's really frightening. And I mean, like, I'm not a mom, but I want to say to women who have boys, like, please talk to them
Please
about
talk.
treating women properly and seeing them as what they are, which is completely equal humans to you. Like, it's scary to me. Yeah.
It is. And that's coming from the stemming from this male loneliness epidemic, right? That they talk about. But, I think that, and I have a little bit of understanding with that, like for Gen X, like for our generation, kind of. Like, I think that the men in that generation did get kind of caught in the middle, right? Like, there were the boomers, and that was definitely the more traditional roles, right? And women hadn't really stepped out of their traditional roles, traditional wife roles at that point. And then Gen X came along, and there was a mix, right? You and I went to college. We had the choice to go out and earn our own living, or not, or we could be we could be a stay-at-home mom if that's what we wanted to do, work from at home. There was a lot of choices, and I think there was a lot of in that bubble there, a lot of confusion for the men. Like, wait, what is my role? My dad taught me this, but my wife is out there doing this, and that kind of makes sense to me, but I'm not really sure where to go. So I understand kind of that confusion within our generation of men and what their roles are, and I do have some empathy there for it. But I think beyond that, like you said, I think it's being taught, and I don't think
Mm-hmm.
it's being, and I think that a lot of the lack of social skills that have been developed over the years due to social media and due to video games and things like these are more of the cause of them not being able to connect with these people, but they're being taught it's the women's fault. They're being taught that women don't want me, or women need me. And it's like, it's true. Like, I don't want to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't have any emotional maturity that I do, right? Who hasn't done the work, who doesn't support women as well, and knows and understands that that doesn't affect their masculinity. If anything, it enhances their masculinity, right?
Hmm.
I think you're a lot more desirable, stronger man if you're a feminist as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I don't think
yeah.
that's
It's true. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't think we're getting that. So, to your point, the incel thing is very scary, and it's they again, this male loneliness epidemic. The truth is, women, we don't need men for the things we used to need them for, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just we have to learn to, like you said, cohabitate as with roles being able to be however roles be that work in that. And I don't want to say reverse roles or gender roles, because that genderizes, but like it's if a, I think we have to normalize, if a man wants to be home with children, we support that wholly and we don't judge him for that. But I don't think society's still not. It's now we're starting to work against that again, whereas I think we were getting closer to that. So it's a frustrating time. I'm kind of glad I'm older and out of
Yeah, yeah.
that now.
No, truthfully, yeah, because I feel like the danger is more with the younger men now, like because you see it, the 20 somethings are like, and I mean, my gosh, there's so many. I probably watched too many different podcasts about this so that I actually know about it. Gropers, or the groupers, or
Yeah,
groypers. It's the groypers,
Grapers.
where they're not gay. And of course, they probably bashed gay, but they don't have sex with women because women are kind of like, it's almost like that, like grade school icky. Like
Yeah.
we don't
It's
appreciate
goodies.
women. We don't even want to have sex with them. We hate them so much. It's the groypers, I guess. But it's like such a weird kind of thing. It's just so bizarre,
It
It's
is.
and certain guys that flex because they are with it's so bizarre. It's just strange. And yes, I'm glad I'm not young and out there. And I would be
And
like,
I think that they think that they're doing that as a reaction to thinking that misandry from women. They think that women hate men. And it's not. That's not it, and that's not what feminism is at all. Like, feminism is holding space for everyone, right? Just understanding that women have over historically have not had the same rights as men, and therefore supporting whatever it is that they want to choose to do because they haven't had that support in the past. But being a strong feminist doesn't mean that I hate men. Quite the opposite. It's well, no, I wouldn't say it's the opposite, but it's. It's
let's
not.
not go
I mean,
that far.
I don't think one makes or breaks the other. I don't think, but
No.
I think they coexist. Right? I have no hatred towards men. I have hatred towards the patriarchy, and and people, when you hear like death to the patriarchy, they think that that's towards men, and that's not the case at all. It's towards a society, these societal norms that have kept women, repressed and suppressed over centuries, right? That's the patriarchy we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think there's this huge misunderstanding, and these young groups come out and start to say we hate women because of this. Well, no, you don't. You're just misinformed, and it's such a danger. It's such a
Yeah,
danger.
misinformed and too immature to really fully understand and
Yeah,
grasp
yeah.
everything. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but at least they're men. It's the women that don't support other women that I have a really hard time with. You don't have to have my
Mm.
political views. You don't have to have but hold space for other women. Don't bash other women for being who they want to be. Don't backstab that woman. Don't stop this comparing yourself. These new influence, the new trend again is back to the Twiggy. Do you remember like Twiggy, the 70s?
Yes, yes.
And how there's these so many women like you'll see on influencers on Instagram and stuff like that get on there and be like, well, skinny is the only way to be, and if you're not skinny, then you're just, you're lazy, and you've got to stop, have some self-control, and there's all this stuff over like judging women for their bodies again over like their weight. Like, I thought we got away from that, and now it's coming back, and
Mm,
I
yeah.
mean, it's no coincidence that this skinny thing is coming back in as women had started to rise in power, and now society is wanting to push women back down to their place and make them just quite literally smaller. And it's a lot easier to control women when we are hungry, when we're malnourished, when we're skinny, when we're smaller. That's what and this is what we saw in the 60s and 70s, right? Like, women started to come up in that surge we got all the votes. This skinny thing came in, right? Then for a while we started to work back up. Strong became the new skinny. Remember that saying back, 10 years
Mm,
ago or whatever. And now we're starting to see this again because women started to come up in power again, started to, express their power and be independent. And now society is trying to bring us back down again. And there's a huge correlation between that. I've done a lot of reading on that, and that's pretty fascinating.
yeah. And I agree with you. There's like at least, not that it's cool that men would, hate women or whatever, but when you have women who aren't supporting women, it's that's even worse because you're like, what are you doing? Or, I know there's a whole also like recently the trad wives are kind of big
Hmm.
again. And which again, if you want to do that, that's fine, but don't
Right.
judge women who want to have a career or do both at some point. Like, just
Right.
because they're not doing it your way doesn't make them wrong, and it's
Exactly.
unfortunately that's and I've known women through the years who almost like were like feminism, they looked at feminism as a dirty word because I know one
Mhm.
friend of mine who I love and respect, but she was kind of like, I don't think there's a problem. Like it was almost like she wasn't having the issue. Like, well, I don't have a problem with men at work, and I don't like. So it's like if I did, then there must be like I must be weak or I must be seeing creating a problem. It's like, no, it exists. Like, as you said before, the patriarchy, it exists.
It
Whether
exists.
people want to acknowledge it or not, it
Right.
exists. Where are all these other restraints on men? Or where do we have a
Where?
first? We still haven't had a first female president. So when we stop having firsts, then you can tell me otherwise.
Yeah. When it becomes the norm, does it, you stop saying she was a female doctor or a female congressman or like that. You just start saying, you know, doctor. You assume that's a microfeminism that I like, by the way. When anyone talks about their boss, whether or an attorney or a lawyer or something or a doctor, I assume it's a she. That's a good microfeminism to use. That's for- yeah, and to your point, like, to support other women's choices in whatever it is, like the traditional wife, the trad wife, that's great if that's what you want to do. But that's what this is about. This is about supporting women in what women want to do. And that's ultimately the definition of feminism. But when you start to put other women down or call them like what I think you said, they're stupid for doing that. There was a point I wanted to make that you brought up, but hopefully it'll come back to me because you made a really good point. At work, like so for years, um, Sharon Sandberg, Lean In. Have you heard of the book Lean In from
Yes,
years
yeah.
ago?
I
All right.
haven't read it. I'm sorry to say because I know it was all the rage, but I know she was
Well,
at Facebook, right? Or
she was, yeah,
Cheryl Sandberg. Yeah.
at the time she wrote it, she was the CEO of Facebook. Really interesting take on it when I was in corporate America, right? So, and it was this idea of women taking your seat at the table, like lean in, take your seat at the table, don't be afraid. And she made a really good, she made a really good point of that, and she really inspired a lot of us to do that. And a lot of us did. A lot of us got up and we sat at the table, and a couple of things happened. One, there was the group of women that got up to the table and said, I'm here. And now it was so hard for me to get here. And because society tells me to be in competition with other women all the time, I'm afraid of being in competition with any women because I've had to be now, I've had to work so hard to get here and I'm the only woman here. I'm going to close the door behind me and make it even harder for women to come up because I'm here. And then I'm going to lead like a man and I'm going to be in the boys club and I'm going to go to the strip clubs with guys and I'm going to be the cool person and I'm going to become one of the boys clubs. That was one side. And then the other side was what I've striven to do. As when I got up to the table, I said, I'm going to lead. I got here because of who I am. I got here because of my skills, and it took me longer to get here than I would have if I'd bought into the boys club mentality or if I had been a man. But I have more gifts as a leader to offer than a man does because I can embrace my empathy and I can embrace a lot of things that a man can't. It's going to make me a better leader. And in doing so, I'm going to leave the door open behind me and I'm not going to just lean in, but I'm going to reach back and I'm going to pull up women with me. And I think that's so important. Unfortunately, like you said, that women said you're weak because you're having a problem at work. Well, that's the mentality of I got here, and I'm going to lead like a man. I'm going to try and lead like a man, and I'm going to close the door behind me. And that, as long as that continues to happen, that's old boys club that we hear about and a lot in finance, but a lot in corporate America is always going to exist because women haven't figured out yet to stop competing with each other.
Mm.
That we need to collaborate with each other, and there's room at the table for all of us. And we can, the more we work together, the more seats we're going to get at the table.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And I love collaborating. I think it's great, honestly. I think that's phenomenal. And with that said, to turn it hopeful in a hopeful sense, I do want to talk to you about like the ways that you are doing things like that in the community in your position. I know you're involved in the community a lot. Tell me some of the
Yeah.
things that you work on, some of the collaboration you're part of that's making, making room for women, but also making our community more enriched.
Sure. Well, one of the my favorite boards that I'm on is Dress for Success, the Dress of Luzerne County. We're having our I would plug our International Women's Day luncheon, which is next Friday, but we already sold out because we sold
I
out.
saw that on Facebook. Yeah. But when's the t-shirt coming? I got to know about that. Are you
The
still
t-shirt, we
doing
can
the
get you the
t-shirt?
t-shirt. Yeah, we'll get you the t-shirt. That's the I'll give you the order form for the t-shirt. So that's the great t-shirt. I can't remember I don't remember the slogan for this year, but that's women and it really empowers women and the executive director for that, Linda Loop, really lives that in a day-to-day way. She works with women who are, don't maybe a little what we'd consider less fortunate or have some extra obstacles, whether it be in the prison system or financially, things like that, and really empower and really, really supports and helps them. So really great work being done with Dress for Success to support the some of the most needy women in the community because we can't really be a strong community until we support, we're the all levels of the community, all layers. So that's one of my favorite. And International Women's Day, like I said, is coming up. We'll have a golf tournament in June that I will be co-chairing. So I can plug that if anyone
And are
likes to
you a
golf.
golfer
That's a good
too?
one.
Should I
I'm
I
a
should ask?
huge golfer.
Are you? Okay.
Oh, huge golf. It's one of my favorite ways to break into the boys' club and to like defeat misogyny. And I love to get up in front of all the guys and outdrive them, and then just look back at their face and make them cry. It's one of
I
my
love
favorite.
it. I love it.
It's petty. That's my level of petty. Um, so that's one of the organizations I'm really involved with that I really enjoy. I'm also on the board for the executive board for the Jewish Community Center, which was actually a surprise to me when I got asked to be on it, as I'm not Jewish. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not Jewish. They're like, yeah, we know. And they're like, this is the center for everyone. And what I have found over my years being on the board and working with them, they really are the center for everyone. And they do so many amazing programs. They do some great women's programs sometimes. I'll make sure to share those with you. We do programs for the entire community. There's childcare, there's physical activity, there's yoga, there's conference, there's talks, there's comedy shows. I mean, there's so much, and it's all for the entire community. And I found that surprisingly has been one of the most enriching boards that I've been on as well. It wasn't as obvious to me the ways that they help people. They even do it like a food pantry, where they do a food drive every 2 weeks. The people families drive through and get food, and they do a summer camp for children. Like there's so many wonderful ways that they support the community. So that was a surprise to me. So if anyone wants more information on that, I'd love to talk about that. And then one of my newest passions, and one of the things I love about this area that a lot of people aren't aware of, is that we have an amazing Philharmonic.
Ah,
So the
yes.
Philharmonic of Northeastern Pennsylvania. Uh, it was introduced to me a couple of years ago by a dear friend of mine, and I've been just completely in awe of the level of talent that we have. Our conductor, Melise, is an international award-winning conductor.
She was on the podcast twice. I love her.
Melise,
Yes.
wonderful. So I don't have to plug
Adore
that as
her.
much. Amazing. The level, I don't know how many of the shows you've seen, but like with the most amazing talent. So they're actually having a concert on my birthday, March 12th, Thursday of next week. It's a bluegrass and Celtic music concert at Wyoming Seminary. That's going to be really cool. So that's how I'm going to be celebrating my birthday. But that's just an example of one of the things you find in Northeastern Pennsylvania that you wouldn't expect to find, and the quality of musicianship and the quality of production that you feel like you're in sometimes you sit there and you're like, where am I? Is this am I in New York City? Am I in
Yeah.
Philadelphia? Am I in, a major metropolis? No, you're in Wilkes-Barre and you're getting this quality of culture that is available to you. So that's another one that I'm really involved with right now. Those are the top three, I'd say, of
Yeah.
what I'm doing. And then I do mentor some college students, and I'm involved with America 250 PA right now for the 250th celebration. just bringing awareness to the history in the area and anytime I can talk to anyone about NEPA and the benefits of living here and all the things it has to offer, that's kind of my daily chat when I run into people at coffee shops and things like that.
Yeah, there's some great ones right there. So I've had Linda Loop on the podcast before too.
Great.
Love and be strong, like strong leadership right there. Dress for Success, Luzerne County. I cannot wait to get my new T-shirt. I got to tell you, I look forward to
Yay.
that every year. I've got about 5 of them. But
Great.
yeah, the Philharmonic. Yeah, Melise. I've had her on to talk about her role as one of it's not common to have a female leader
No.
and talk about her documentary that was she was that excuse me that she was in about being one of the I think 14, and then they narrowed down to like 5 or 6 that they focused on from the Maestra competition in Paris, and it was just wonderful. And then I ended up having the director of that documentary on the podcast. Such
Very
a
cool.
great conversation, and I oh my gosh, I love. There's another example of so here's a woman who is happy and proud to be an American citizen.
Hmm.
She came from France, and people again like, "Oh, you're here." Like she had said when she arrived, I think she was saying January, I think in Ohio, maybe it was Cleveland, and she's like, "Why are you people are saying to her, "Why are you
Why are you
here?" And
here?
she said she has been greeted so well and people have been so kind and she loves it. And she became a US citizen. I think it's a little over a year ago now, and she said she just loves America and she loves being here. And I just think it's so nice to hear that. We need to be reminded of those kind of things too,
Yeah.
especially right now when we're being like ripped apart. Here's a woman who chooses it and she loves it
Yeah.
and she's enriching it with her incredible skills and talent.
Yeah. Yeah, she's amazing. Having her that level of talent in this area is such a gift for her. And we just re-signed her, so we'll have her for we re-upped her contract, so we'll have her for a lot longer.
I'm excited about that. That's great. We got to see my mom turned 80 last June and we went to the Tina Turner show at
Wasn't that great? I was
it was
there.
fantastic. And she gave that birthday shout out she gave out was for my mom.
Oh, oh,
Yes.
wonderful. I remember that. That's great. Yeah, that was
And my
such a
mother is
nice.
so shy. She was like, "Oh my god!" But Melise, like, I reached out to her and she was like, "Done." She's like, "What's her favorite Tina Turner song?" And I
Oh,
mean, she was just so gracious. And then afterwards,
yes.
we took pictures. She was just so gracious. I'm like, and so that to me, that's like a reminder of two things. I think sometimes we assume things about people. Like I know I used to too. Like, they're too important or they're too busy or whatever. Reach out and ask people things. The
Yeah.
worst that can happen is they don't respond or they respond and they say, "I'm sorry." She responded like almost instantly and was like, "Sure, what's your mom's favorite?" And she's like, I'll figure it out. We'll work it in." And I was just so grateful to her for doing
She's
that. And,
amazing.
and she's just a kind person, but there are a lot of wonderful people out there and we just need to ask. And sometimes maybe they don't have the time or maybe something can't happen, but you've got to ask to at least find
Yeah,
out.
yeah. There's a good
Yeah.
example of that just happened with America 250 PA. They're doing their International Women's their Women's History Month luncheon on the 20. Sandra's gonna kill me if I don't get the date right. It's the Wednesday, like the 25th or something like that on Wednesday, and it's um, they're having all the former first ladies of the state of Pennsylvania speak.
Oh,
And
nice.
then just kind of as like I wonder if she would do it kind of thing. Same similar phone call. They made a phone call to Dr. Jill Biden to see if she would be interested, if she would do it. And she has graciously accepted, and she will be on the panel and speaking at this luncheon in Harrisburg as well. So
Oh,
if that's something
nice.
you're interested in, let me know. I can get you more information on that.
Yeah, and I would like to share that. That sounds fantastic. See, again,
Yeah.
you just have to ask because sometimes people are just so like they want to share what they have to say and they want to help, for an event and to get that. Yes, that's pretty wild. That's really cool.
Yeah. That was good. Good. Yes. A good yes.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, as we start to wrap up here, I just want to give you the opportunity. I think we covered a lot, and I loved
Yeah.
this conversation because I do love talking to women about this. And again, feminism is not a dirty word. I feel like through the years it's been, and again, a lot by women like, oh, I don't want to be labeled that. And I'll admit myself, I don't love labels anymore so much because I think
Mhm.
that's what, oh, you're there and I'm here, but it's really we don't have to put embroider it on our jacket. It's just how we live and how we act and
Exactly.
treat one another is what it's all about and what it truly means. But in closing, is there anything else that you're like, oh, I really wanted to say, whether it's something about local things happening or about women or helping women, whatever it is that you'd like to close on? I want to give you that opportunity.
Thanks. No, I think thank you. First of all, thank you for having me on here. This I didn't even know until, it had existed for a while, and then when I mentioned it, a couple of people had reached out to me and said, "Oh, you should be on this podcast." So you're getting a great reputation out there, and I love to know that there's this forum for women to be speaking. Um, no, I think, you really hit on pretty much all the major parts. I wanted to say that about feminism as well. A lot of times that we think, oh, you're a feminist, like you said, like that's a dirty word. And again, labels aren't there, but it's not, it's an attitude. It's not a label, right? It's a how do we live our life in support of other women and how we might, in the I microwave, in day to day, right? Like stop. And it starts, I want to say this, it starts with ourselves, right? So when we find ourselves judging other women, which we think we do a lot, unfortunately, as women, because we're put
Mhm.
societally, we're taught to compare ourselves, right? We're taught to compete and compare. And I think that when we find ourselves doing that, even silently, stop, turn around and say, how am I judging myself? Because there's probably some place in there, you're judging them because you're judging yourself in some way, right? And then stop and say, okay, I love myself. I'm giving myself grace and I want to move on. Because the more we can heal ourselves, the more, we can be open to loving others. And it is a tumultuous time right now, but if we replace everything, all of our feelings of we have fear maybe right now or anger, resentment, whatever these feelings are, if we replace just that with the word love in our head and our heart, it goes a long way because we're only feeling those things because we have that love inside of us and that empathy inside of us for others. Otherwise, it wouldn't be bothering us. And if we can show that love to just not just women, but everyone on a day-to-day basis, I think it's going to really it would help a lot to go further in the collaboration over competition. I always tell people when I'm mentoring them or training them, I say, amateurs compete, professionals create, collaborate. So we try to do that. So try to be professional with yourself, I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, but yeah, but yeah, if you don't want to call yourself a feminist, that's okay. But just don't don't make it worse. If you can't make it better, don't make it worse.
yeah, yeah.
At
That's a good way to
least.
look at it. Yeah, if you don't want to be on board, at least don't get in the way.
At least not in a way.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
guess that's probably, other than that, I mean, you covered a lot of topics there. That was great.
Good.
You do a great job.
Well, thank you. And I want to say thank you so much for agreeing to be on. And it was great when you reached out and you're like, yeah, someone mentioned it. I'm like, all right, cred there. We got some street cred there. That's
A
good.
lot, a lot. Yes, you're doing
It was
great.
it was so fun. That's another reason I'll tout all the time with NEPA. Like I run into so many people. I mean, I do live in Scranton, so I tend to go to a cafe called Retro Cafe where I'll be out there. I'll run into five different people. One
Uh-huh.
person I know will introduce me to the person they are with, and it's such a great way. But that morning meeting with Jessica, and then you're there, and it's just so nice to be out and meeting different people. Maybe you've only met them once, or maybe you didn't meet them and the person's introducing you. It's such a great way to connect. And that can lead to all these wonderful collaborations and learning about different
Absolutely.
organizations like the ones you're a part of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, if you ever want to have coffee in Wilkes-Barre, let me know. And then when I'm in Scranton, my office is in Music. I'm right in between,
All
so
right. That's
we can
perfect.
we can grab coffee there too. But I gotta admit, when I saw the title of your podcast, I was kind of hoping we were gonna be sitting down doing this over a glass of
I
wine.
know. I know. You know what? It's funny. There are times when I'm like, geez, I wish, because I do like to drink wine. And when I was thinking of the podcast, I'm like, uncorked with Funny Wine Girl, because I do my comedy under the name of, Funny Wine Girl when I do my shows. But I'm like, I like the idea of uncorking because I want my guests to feel comfortable to open up, to share, to pour out, so to speak. But I really don't cover wine in the beginning. I'd occasionally ask women about wine, and now I don't even. And now I'm like, I wonder if I should have changed this name of the
No,
podcast. But
no, it's perfect.
on that note, though, I will ask you in closing: do you like wine, and what kind do you like if you do?
Oh my goodness. I am from Northern California, as I mentioned before. I grew up on Napa Reds, Paso Robles Reds, nice, crisp Sauvignon Blancs from the Sonoma
Mm.
Valley. So those are, yes, those wines, but in Italian wines, I got into, my first jobs were in the restaurant industry, so I learned about Italian wines and about Spanish wines, and so yes, the answer is, do I drink wine? Yes. Do I love wine? Yes. What kind of wine do I drink? Yes.
I like all those answers. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm someone though, like I tend to drink more whites, which I know there's more sugar in them, and I wish I had more of an appreciation for reds. Sometimes in the winter I'll do reds, but I
Uh,
like whites. But I get frustrated sometimes when you do go out to dinner and there's like the typical, two or three choices. So when I find a restaurant that has like actually more variety, I'm like, ooh, this is exciting. I'll have to remember that. But I did
yes.
go years ago. I want to say it was, oh my gosh, a very long time ago when I went to visit my cousin in San Francisco. And I took by myself, I went, it was a bus trip to Sonoma.
Yes.
And I forget there was two cities we went to, and I loved it. It was a really great time, and I even had I think I was even part of the wine club. Madonna Estates was one of them,
Okay.
and I was getting the wine there for a while. And then when my budget was kind of like, you don't really need to do this
Need the wine.
anymore. You can get cheaper wine. You can't really, your budget can't really support this anymore.
Yeah.
That, and I want to say Klein Cellars. There was like
Wine
a
is very good. Yeah, I
Klein,
like
yes, I
wine.
remember.
Yeah.
I pulled that out of, but I remembered liking the wine there. But it was funny at the time, I couldn't ship to Pennsylvania what I was buying. So, but I could ship to New Jersey. So it was funny. I reached out to my friend, and she wasn't much of a wine drinker or drinker either way. But I'm like, these are coming to your house. Do not touch them. Do not open them.
Okay.
They're mine.
What's that line from Hamilton? Everything's legal in Jersey.
Well, I was grateful. I'm like, I got to get this wine
You
home. Let
gotta
me
get,
tell
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know if you can ship to Pennsylvania anymore or not. I don't have my wine clubs anymore, but yeah, it's great. Yeah, I do love wine. So so next time if you want to have a glass of, and what I tell people about wine, because I mean, I do know a lot about wine. The best wine is the wine that you like. So it doesn't matter if it's red, white, sweet, dry. It's what you like.
Yeah,
No
well, I do
judgment.
like a crisp Sauvignon Blanc though that you mentioned that.
Nice.
That's one of my favorites too. Yeah. So we'll have to try a wine definitely. I think that would be
Yes,
good.
yes. That'd
Well,
be
thank
great.
you so much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate what you're doing out in the community and with all the collaboration, with all the empowerment. I think it's great. Are you going to be at the Empower conference this year?
I am not going to be at the conference. I have another conflict, and I have a previous conflict, so I won't be there this year. But
Okay. Well, it was nice. I'm glad we got to at least connect from that. And I would say
yeah,
to any women listening, take advantage of those opportunities to go to these conferences, and even if it's not something in your budget, like smaller events like luncheons, things like that that are held because it is a great place to, and we've talked about this on my podcast before. The word network is kind of like up there where
yeah,
people like cringe at it, but it's just an opportunity to meet people, and
yeah,
it can be very helpful to help you learn things. But also, I mean, if you are looking for a job or if you're looking to switch careers or something, just the more people you get to know and the more knowledge and life lessons you get to learn is just really beneficial.
yeah. It is. Also, one thing that I found useful in my life is you run into different people, and they have different, professions or different specialties. Sometimes you want to learn more about it, but you don't want to go to like a formal, like, a conference or like you said, a bigger event or something like that. Oftentimes, like people will ask me, they'll call up and say, "Hey, my girlfriends are coming over. We want to get a few girlfriends to come over. Would you just come over and open a bottle of wine and talk to us about some basics of investing or something like that?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'll do that for you guys in a very casual atmosphere." And other professional women will do that too on different topics. So don't be afraid to ask for like a personal seminar if you want.
That's a great idea. And that's actually something we haven't talked about on here, but I love that because it takes the pressure off and and like you're saying, it's a very comfortable, casual setting. Let's get together and learn about this in a way that we're comfortable. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. So don't be afraid to ask for that as well.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Well, thank you so
Great.
much again. And thank you to my listeners. I really do encourage you to look for opportunities to engage, to collaborate, and again, remember to, support. If you're not going to help out, then get out of the way. As we said, don't be a hindrance, right? So, thank you again. And as I say each week, if you're interested in being on the podcast, or if you know someone, if you're like, oh, Susie's really interesting and she's done this or that, well, first ask Susie if it's something she'd like to do. And then you can reach out to me, let me know, or have her reach out to me. Or if you're the person who wants to be on, please don't be afraid to reach out to me. Funny Wine Girl Janine, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, but you can always reach out to me. In the show notes, I have my email. And if you'd like to support conversations like this, I do have very affordable packages, sponsorship packages. This is my 5 year. I'll be celebrating in May. So I've got some special events going on this year that I'm super excited about. April, I am still waiting on. Unfortunately, I can't give all the full details, but I'm collaborating with an organization and we're going to be doing a screening of a very important documentary, Loud Enough Surviving Justice, in Scranton on April 13th. And we'll be having a conversation afterwards with the film's director and someone from WRC to talk about what they do offer for people who are in, situations where they've been assaulted or being abused and they could use resources. So that's April 13th. It will be in Scranton in person. Like I said, I will share the full details when the collaborating organization is ready to do that, which will hopefully be soon. Otherwise, just follow me on social media. And if you don't have it in the budget to support this podcast financially, remember, you can support by sharing the podcast. Tell a friend, foe, anyone you know, write a review. All of those things help. So, as I say each week, as I wrap up here, I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.